Welcome in, everyone. It is the NBA draft, and with their two selections in the first round of the draft, the Dallas Mavericks got Dereck Lively out of Duke and Olivier-Maxence Prosper from Marquette. A number of trades involved there. First, before we get to all of that, Locked On's NBA draft coverage is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, and they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you that, so get to ordering. Now let's bring in our host of Locked On Mavericks, Nick Angstadt. Nick, tell us what you think about first. Let's start with Dereck Lively, first pick of the night for the Mavs. How are we feeling about him out of Duke?
The Mavericks probably could have just taken Dereck Lively at 10, but instead they decide to make this trade where they trade down 2 spots. They send Davis Bertans to the Thunder. They say, hey, take this contract for the rest of its life. You've got a lot of space over there because you don't really have any big contracts at all in Oklahoma City. So they take him. They move down 2 spots, get the guy that they wanted at 10 anyway. They wanted Dereck Lively this whole time. They needed somebody that could rebound just at all. Like, just rebound in any way, shape, or form. Defend the rim. He averaged 2.4 blocks a game in college. He defended the rim really well at Duke. He didn't put up a lot of other numbers, but he can rebound. He can defend the rim really well. He's got really good sense around the basket. And he can also hit the three. This is something that helped him rise from like the early 20s in the beginning of the draft process to now being a potentially 10th pick and then actually getting drafted at 12. Is he can hit the three. He can step out and take a three. His shot looks pretty good. He hit a ton of threes in his pre-draft workouts. Rafael Barlow was telling us about seeing a draft workout from him after the fact that he probably wasn't supposed to see with Clutch and all of those clients and everybody there. He was hitting a bunch of corner threes. So that's something that we can project that he'll be able to do in the future. On offense, he'll absolutely be able to rim roll, and we hope that he'll eventually step out and take a three-point shot. So this is a player the Mavericks could have gotten at 10, but instead made this trade with Davis Bertans to go down 2 spots. And then they used what they got for Davis Bertans in the trader player exception to get Olivier-Maxence Prosper.
Okay, so you mentioned Olivier-Maxence Prosper. How does he fit into the roster, and what do you make of him?
He fits in an incredible way. Everybody listening to this, if you listen to Locked On Mavericks, you know how much Isaac Harris, my co-host, wanted Olivier-Maxence Prosper. We've been talking about the Mavericks trading down, the Mavericks taking their pick at 10, trading down, getting a win now player right now, and then trading down and get somebody else. These trade back targets we've talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks. And Isaac has said Olivier-Maxence Prosper's name so many times. He just wanted him and just saw a guy that exemplified like what a role player can be. An incredible like personality and talent. He's 6'7". He's got a 7'1" wingspan. He can shoot the three okay. Didn't shoot it that well in college, but a lot of people compare him to like what Dorian Finney-Smith was, who was a player very close to our hearts, was just a homegrown talent that the Mavericks just really loved and hated to part with him to get Kyrie Irving in that trade. But they get Olivier-Maxence Prosper. And he now fits a really big need that they had, and that's another big wing. They have Reggie Bullock, who's like 6'5", 6'6". He can guard smaller players better than he can guard bigger players. They have Josh Green, who's like 6'5", 6'6", can guard smaller players better than he can guard bigger players. Like, they have 2 of those guys. And now they have another guy that they can throw out there and maybe develop probably a little bit, but they can at least have another guy that's 6'7" that can guard some bigger wings and guards some bigger players. They needed that really badly. And so now they get somebody that they can develop a little bit. I don't know if he's going to come in right away and be like a real and be a real key for them early on and get rotation minutes. He's the one I'm going to have to see, but there's a chance that he becomes a guy that Jason Kidd just really loves, that Jason Kidd looks at and says, man, this is a guy that I'm really vibing with. He's such a competitor. He wants to go out there and defend his butt off. And Jason Kidd loves that. If you can defend, Jason Kidd will find you minutes and he'll play you. You can see just from the last couple of years, the players he decided to play. And Olivier-Maxence Prosper can do that. And so I wonder if he finds some minutes early on just because of his ability to defend. The Mavericks needed to improve their defense so badly from last year to this year. And they do it with both of these picks. And one of the best rim protectors in the draft and a really good wing defender that has a really long wingspan that can do a lot of things and eventually developed to them, to help them on the wings and defend in that way. And so I'm really excited about both of these, but I'm really just more excited. I'm going to keep going. I'm really excited about what they did with the 2 trades because they really take the 10th pick and Davis Bertans' contract that was $17 million this year. And $5 million, basically, that's all that was guaranteed next year. They take that 10th pick in Davis Bertans' contract and turn it into both these players. And so they get They go down. They also get Richaun Holmes in the deal from the Sacramento Kings, and so that's a center that has been pretty disappointing. Didn't get any minutes at all with the Kings down the stretch, or a lot last year, which is really concerning to me because they really needed a rebounder. They really needed a big in any kind of way, shape, or form, and they didn't play him. So that's concerning to me. I don't know if he'll come in and play right away. They have this weird collection of centers now with Maxi Kleber, with Dereck Lively, who they just drafted, with JaVale McGee, with Richaun Holmes now, and probably Dwight Powell coming back on a minimum as the veteran on this team. And so they've got this weird collection of centers. I don't know what they're going to do with them at this point, but they basically just use those two assets and move down and get two guys that were really, really good. Isaac had him as, I think, the 20th player in the draft. A lot of guys had Olivier-Maxence Prosper rising up on draft boards and rising up into the 20s. And so this is just a really good pick for them. And to get Dereck Lively and Olivier-Maxence Prosper, really good move for the Mavericks. Excited about it. They didn't get any win now players that they wanted. That's the one thing, if you look at and you're going to say, let me critique this and say, all right, you didn't go out and get what you wanted. You got the two types of players that you desperately needed, but you did not get somebody that is going to come in day one and guaranteed to play and to contribute. That's something that we're still waiting for. They have created a mid-level exception, some kind of mid-level exception. It's very complicated with the new cap and all that, but they've created some kind of exception in that way. And so maybe they get a Grant Williams that fills that bill for them. But there is some question marks still with the Dallas Mavericks, even though they got the two types of players they just really desperately needed and were creative in the way that they did it.
I liked this quote I saw before everything happened from Mark Cuban. Bad reason to be in the lottery, but we're here, made the most of it, right? I mean, don't you think it's a front office that is pretty creative? And I think they've proved that. Anything else that this team needs to add before we let you go? As you mentioned, kind of a win now player. What type of player is that?
Yeah, they needed to add three things this offseason. One of those is a starting center. I don't know that they've definitely nailed that down. Dereck Lively will now be penciled in as that guy. He's a top 12 pick, and so he's going to be expected to come in and play. They needed to add big defensive wings. They add Olivier-Maxence Prosper, who can be that. I don't know if he's going to come in day one and contribute, just like I said, Dereck Lively. And then they needed to add a third ball handler, somebody else that could come in, handle the ball. I don't think Jaden Hardy is that for them right now. They haven't played him at point guard very much. Even with Kyrie and with Luka, I think that you at least need one more guy because those guys miss games. They miss time. You need another one of them on the floor, another guy to just take the ball out of those guys' hands just for a little bit during the game. They didn't do that last year. They regretted it throughout the whole season. Like, we kept asking them to do it. They went and they tried to get like a player on the waiver wire or somebody. It just didn't work. So those are the three things they needed to do. I don't know they've exactly addressed all of them, but they somehow, they some way have addressed those guys and getting some young talent today.
All right. Well, for more on the Mavericks, we will be sure to stay tuned to the Locked On Mavericks podcast. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Mavericks, wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Nick, so appreciate your insight. Lots of good info, and make sure everyone is staying tuned and subscribed. Thanks so much.